I guess the takeaway for both of us is it's easier to play jazz than it is to play classical music. What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in today. We are here with episode number 2 of this Not a Podcast YouTube interview / guest artist series, as I'm billing it. It is not a podcast. Today, we've got Patrick Pfister here. Patrick is the principal trombone player for the Omaha Symphony, where we both live. And I thought he would be a great person to bring in, and we could talk a little about kind of like classical versus jazz, if we can talk about it in that way. I don't really love setting up that sort of paradigm because I think all of us are just sort of musicians. We're just playing. We're trying to make music the best we can. We play different gigs. I play an occasional classical gig. Patrick plays a lot of different styles in the orchestra, which he has to be able to play well. And so I thought this could be sort of an insightful conversation. We're going to talk about some stuff. We're going to do some playing that sort of highlights, some of these different stylistic things that we need to be able to think about. And that's what it's going to be. So what's up, Patrick?
Hey, thank you for having me, Shawn.
Yeah, for sure. So Patrick and I know each other. I wouldn't say we've really hung out a ton.
No, I come to a couple of your gigs.
Yeah. And we play together occasionally, not a ton, but occasionally. But I always enjoy the time when we hang out with each other.
Of course.
So I am going to ask Patrick just a little bit of some bio information, mostly just because I'm kind of interested, because we've never really talked about it, in all honesty. So let me look at my little cheat sheet here. So you are not from here. I'm not from here. Both of us are transplants to here. But where are you originally from? And where'd you go to school and stuff like that? I don't even know that information.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious.
I'm a Midwest boy. Grew up in Minneapolis, just outside of Minneapolis. Did my undergrad, actually did some post-secondary at the University of Minnesota. My final 2 years, I think, of high school. Studied with Tom Ashworth and a little bit with Doug Wright before I left. And then, went to Madison for my undergrad. Studied with Mark Hetzler, who was just coming in as the new teacher there. Had 4 awesome years there. Then went to Indiana to study with Carl Lenthe, kind of for 2 reasons. There was also fresh doctoral student at Madison, Todd Schendel, who had done his master's with Carl maybe 6 or 8 years prior. And then Carl also came in and did the first Badger Bone Bash my freshman year. And between Todd being like kind of a great secondary teacher and Carl playing amazingly, I was like, I think I know in 3 years or 4 years where I want to go to grad school. And then did that, studied with Pete a little bit as well, Pete Olofsson, while I was at IU. And then a week after I graduated, I won this job here.
Oh, wow. So I was going to ask you sort of like what that audition journey was like for you.
Yeah.
So we have a mutual friend, Bobby Sharman. He plays bass in my band, Paper Canaries. He is also in the Omaha Symphony. He's actually, this is no shade to any other musicians I know. I feel like Bobby is one of the best musicians I know because he does so many things really well. It's very impressive.
Plays, even though I don't think I've ever heard him play piano, I think he's like really good at piano, and he played viola and
so he's like that guy. But he has been on a ton of auditions. He's been on really like the circuit and has had really more of that experience. So if there are any sort of like, budding orchestral musicians watching this, it takes all forms, with that sort of thing. Sometimes, it happens very quickly. Sometimes it doesn't happen very quickly, and it just is the way it is. I am not an orchestral musician, and so I don't necessarily know that much about that world. That is just not kind of the world that I occupy. So before we get into like some of our like real like musical examples today and kind of figuring out all this like classical versus jazz stuff, if we can talk about it in that way, I was interested to know from you, Patrick, about like, what do you think the things are that are important for you as an orchestral musician? Obviously, on this channel, I talk all the time about like jazz stuff, and so people hear, my opinion on that all the time. But I think it's really great to hear, A, just from somebody else, but B, from somebody who is in like sort of a different, I hate to say a different line of work, but a different like area of the same line of work, and what things you really think are important to you being successful. Whether that was winning an audition or whether it was just like, you being successful in the orchestra and that kind of stuff. I said 3, but give me a couple.
Sure. So I'll start with physical preparation, I guess. Again, when I was like maybe a freshman, I checked out the Dennis Wick like trombone technique book. And I think from an early age and in other things in life, I'm very interested in the like if you have good technique, you can just apply that to other things.
Mm-hmm.
And so Dennis Wick's kind of philosophy was like, I would rather spend 60 or 90 minutes on routine and apply keeping those that excellence, and it should be easier to like sight read something or quickly learn something rather than, oh, I warmed up for 5 minutes. Now I'm gonna like, I guess, hack through this thing that I maybe haven't worked on double tonguing in, 8 months. So one thing that I guess maybe live by, and I've tried to get a little better, is to like prioritize a full routine, and I try to change it slowly over months. And oh, I heard someone do this cool pattern, like it's really hard, like how can I do that? And so you try not to do too much of one thing that tires you out, but that's I think one thing that led to my success, certainly as a student, and it's just kind of the way I've kept going is to really prioritize hitting all the bases almost every day.
Yeah. So are you somebody who tends to like more structure in that way, like hyper structure? Do you like to know just like sort of like the bases and like the conceptual things, and you might work those in a variety of ways? Like what way do you attack that? So for me, for example, and I think I've mentioned this here before, I have historically not been a great practicer of the fundamentals. As somebody who's been always trying to be a jazz musician, I don't know, it's hard to say that I've invested too much time in like trying to learn to improvise, because obviously both things are important, but both things are extremely time consuming, to learn how to improvise and get all that stuff together and transcribe, but then also spend, 90 minutes on fundamentals every day. It's like, where does the time go? Where do the chops go?
Overwhelming. Yeah.
Yeah. Where do you like it as far as that amount of structure? Because that's something that I've had to kind of figure out, is when you're doing this longer routine, is like every minute of it like mapped out, or is it sort of like the concepts are there and it's a little more, not freewheeling, but somewhat more flexible?
Yeah. So I just took slightly over 2 weeks off this summer, which I don't think I did last summer. I mean, around the holidays, if I don't have to play like the first gig back after the new year, I'll give myself a few days, but this was the longest that I've taken off in a while. And actually, yeah, coming back is not that bad, but then I started tinkering. And and all of a sudden it's like, okay, why am I now having issues doing this thing? And so, yeah, I mean, I kind of have an order of like easy to harder, and you can mix in, if you're doing high range, mix in something that's not as strenuous in between or whatever. But yeah, I like I said, I kind of like to slowly change a pattern or use the same idea, but in a different way. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I think it can be, generally once we're in the season, it's if I'm feeling like I just need to feel the same way every day, it might be like 3 or 6 months where nothing really changes.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, summer is a great time to experiment. Or if we maybe get like a week off where, trombones aren't used, it's nice to feel like, okay, now I can like try incorporating this other thing in.
Yeah. And again, that's like a lesson I'm having to learn, I think, just later in life. And I think I just underinvested a lot in that when I was younger, because I was trying to work on all this other stuff. And, now I'm realizing like, well, man, I can't play this difficult arpeggio thing that I want to play. It's not because I can't play the arpeggio. It's because my fundamentals aren't good enough. And so just the response across the horn is not there. It's not like I don't know the notes. Mm-hmm. It's just that like getting the response to be even and clear and blah, 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 blah is not working. And that's like a fundamental issue, not a jazz vocabulary issue. And that's something that I think has been maybe, I don't know, not a struggle for me to learn, but something I've had to learn. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's number one. What else you got for your things that are important?
Well, let's see if I can come up with a third, but I know my second.
Okay.
I guess preparation. So our job, I haven't done the breakdown, but we probably do. So we've got 7 Masterworks concerts, 6 Jocelyn series. And now everything else is more or less, other than educational, is lumped into live. So it used to be like 4 rock shows and 6 pop shows. And now we do, 4 or 5 movies. And there might be a couple of specials thrown in. We do a lot less big band esque type things than we used to do, which is why I don't really have a small bore horn. Like my first few years, we'd have some legitimate like big band shows, which were awesome. But so anyway, preparation. I can generally prepare for the classical side of things. Most music is, in public domain. If it's not, hopefully we're not premiering it or something, I can at least find a recording. But my summer goal is like, I open up a notepad and just write down all the pieces that either need attention or that I don't know.
Oh, excuse my dog getting in here to say hello.
And
I don't think she's ever made a guest appearance on the YouTube channel before. That's definitely going to help the views for sure. What you doing, June girl? Oh, you going to come through? Oh, okay. Hello. Yeah.
So back when printers were a thing,
yeah.
I would like print off. We don't have a printer that works in our house. So I would like print off everything that I needed and make a binder. And that way I can start throwing it up on my stand in the summer, work on the really hard things. Like this season, we're starting outdoors and I'm playing the third movement of the Eric Larson solo, the concertino. So that has to be ready. And it's kind of a piece that a lot of high schoolers play, but I've never actually performed it with anyone, and it's technical, and I want to take it faster than the written tempo. So like that needs to be ready. And then a couple months later, we're doing Fanfares Liturgiques, which has a big trombone solo, and this will be, I think, the second or third time I've played the solo part. But you're kind of all on your own on that, and so that's more of a like, the nerves just have to be there at the moment, but it's a fun solo to work on, and then whatever other symphonies we're doing. So yeah, I kind of try to map out all the hard stuff, the alto stuff, where we're going to need assistance. And then, so you do a lot of the work early, but then there's a lot of music that shows up on your stand that you only get 2 weeks with. And, I think everyone would agree, like, that's part of being a good musician and a good colleague is to show up like prepared. And
yeah, you don't want to be the liability.
Right.
That's the thing.
The conductor stopping because you're the one who doesn't know your rhythm or whatever. So, I think again, it's kind of along the lines of technique of just like putting in the work early, but, you just want to be functioning at high of a level, whether that's again both technically knowing the part and then also having listened to the work and hopefully grabbing an appreciation for the work while you're then sitting there in rehearsal and playing it, but that doesn't necessarily always happen.
Do you feel like that, like do you feel like that's often overwhelming to like work through all that stuff? Because that's definitely something that's different again about the work that I do than you do. Most of the jazz gigs I'm playing are my own gigs, or even if it's somebody else's material, we're probably not playing like every week a whole concert of new things. We're doing a lot of either standards or doing material that we've played before, and so you have sort of that time to develop a relationship with the material versus like, hey, here's the thing, play it 3 times and then we're on to the next thing.
Well, and this is, I would say, the most disappointing thing about being a professional compared to being a student. Like when you have, whether it's with a brass quintet, your group, or even just orchestral concerts, like at IU, certainly that was more condensed into 2 weeks preparation versus a month or whatever for maybe Wisconsin. But getting to actually like dig into a piece and learn it and have it become kind of a part of you is something that, you get 4 rehearsals, 5, maybe usually 4 rehearsals or less, certainly for any of the classical shows. And you don't necessarily play a piece every rehearsal. So it might be 1 or 2. And that, again, sometimes works in your favor, but in a large part, like it's kind of gone before you get to fully appreciate it.
Yeah.
And so it's in our contract that we basically are guaranteed our music 2 weeks ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's really no excuse not to like have not looked at your music list. But how often do you show up for a gig where it's just like, okay, the folder's on the stand and I don't know. I didn't know what
depends. Yeah. Like around here, not as much.
Okay.
There's some big band things around here that'll be like that, where it's like, if it's like a reading band or something like that, those are usually not like the most high pressure of situations, you know? They're usually sort of a somewhat more casual gig. And also some of the material might be sort of like, you know, a bassy tune I've played 1,000 times or something like that. Mm-hmm. But gosh, I'm trying to think if there are any ones that, playing in some like wedding bands and things like that. Like sometimes, those things will be like, you know, you might get the charts a day ahead of time. Somebody sends you a drive link or something and you just grab them all and you go for it. Mm-hmm. And I would say the thing that's challenging as a trombone player in that situation is oftentimes those are B flat charts, because they're written for the trumpet player and the tenor player. And so then you got to transpose and, you know, you can end up sort of stepping in some things in that way. But for most other sort of like commercial work I do, and certainly for the jazz playing I do, it's more of a lead time than that. You know, the people will get the stuff to you at least a little bit ahead of time. And, but there are definitely cities I've lived, and there are definitely cities that I don't live, but just maybe that have a more active music scene and a more like, I hate to say competitive music scene, but just where there are more players and more things going on than there are here, where that's probably going to be, you might roll up to the gig and here's the music and go for it.
Is it still a thing like for combos where it's like, okay, we're doing this chart in G?
Oh, 100%. Okay. Yeah. Where you just got to like know the tunes. Yeah. That's still 100% a thing. Everywhere you go sort of in the jazz world, and having that repertoire of tunes is important. You know, at one point I probably knew maybe 300 tunes, but now I bet I know like a little more than 100 because I don't play that many gigs that are like that anymore. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't play a lot of that type of small group jazz where it's just sort of like we're making it happen in the moment. I still play some of it, but most of that I do, it's with a band. It's with people that I play with often. And so we sort of like have the tunes we would mostly like to play, or we're playing our original music. And in all honesty, for me, it's mostly about playing original music. You know, it doesn't necessarily scratch my itch that much to go play a restaurant gig where we're going to call standards all night where nobody's listening. You know what I mean? For $100. Not to be like I'm above $100 gig. I'm not. I definitely go play a $100 gig. It's more about the musical component of it. Yeah. That is more important to me. It's like, okay, if we're going to go play this gig that, do classical musicians talk about the gig triangle?
No.
Okay, cool. So for those of you out there who don't know, the gig triangle has 3 components. It has money, so it pays well. Music, the music is good, or the hang is good. So those 3 components. And the idea is if it has 2 of those things, you take the gig. Mm. So if it has a good hang and good money, even if the music isn't very good, the gig's going to be great because it's got 2 of those things. If it's good music and a good hang, but the money is maybe not so great, I'm still going to do it and I'm available. The scheduling doesn't conflict. I'm going to do it. And so a lot of the jazz gigs, especially around here, do often be more of definitely the hang. I try to make sure it's a hang that I get musicians that I like playing with and I like as humans. And then trying to make the music component happen because the money component a lot of times isn't happening. Not to say that it's never happening, but a lot of times it isn't. And, you know, I essentially try to make my money other ways, mostly through teaching, through me. That's sort of the path that I've chosen to sort of like make all the gears turn. And there are definitely pros and cons to that. Some people will be like, well, Shawn, you got to be lobbying for more dollars. Yeah, that's a real thing, and you know, kind of like almost a separate discussion in some ways. But yeah, that's kind of what the available options here. So I'm always trying to make sure that the music side is really working, where we're going to maybe play some original music, or at least if we play some standards, maybe we've like come up with some good arrangements just to make it engaging for us, you know, as musicians and that sort of stuff. But yeah, there are still a lot of gigs where you're just like, okay, we're going to play, you know, out of nowhere, but we're going to do it in F, even though everybody plays it in G, and you got to be able to like, you know, make that stuff happen, which is kind of part of the deal. Okay, so I asked you for one more thing. So what's your third thing? So
yeah, I mean, I think this goes for all lines of work, but being a good colleague and, yeah, I mean, both within the section and then within the community. Like I don't necessarily gig a lot anymore outside of the orchestra, but I know that I probably gotten a few calls because like I just showed up and
yeah, easy to deal with.
Did the job.
Yeah. And like, especially for you in the orchestra, it's different because like, so for me is, if I don't like somebody, if I call somebody for a gig and they have bad attitude, they don't come prepared, whatever, I just don't call them anymore. You know what I mean? And it's not even a thing like, oh, I have to fire you or make it some drama thing. It's just like, oh, well, this person isn't taking this stuff seriously. I'm not going to call you anymore.
Yeah. If I have to choose.
Yeah. But so in the orchestra, you don't get to choose who you sit next to.
I don't know.
And so, like that's like a different thing. And like, do you want to be the person who like is sitting there next to your standmate if you're a string player and you like hate each other? Like,
yeah,
that's like a whole different paradigm that I am deeply unfamiliar with as a freelancing type of person.
I mean, and I think my immediate vicinity, my brass colleagues are all awesome. And I think as a whole, like the Omaha Symphony is pretty darn easygoing.
I've found over the years, and this is me stating this is a complete nobody, just as a journeyman person, overwhelmingly, the players who are really great are cool. Like they're easy. You know what I mean? They're like not jerks or don't have big egos. I feel like oftentimes, a lot of times, the people who are challenging to deal with are sometimes not the best musicians, and I don't know, surely that is not always true, but I don't know if you've experienced that. The most people really who have it together and who are like good working professionals they're just easy to get along with because whether they're actively knowing that that's part of the game or whether they're just easy, Yeah. I mean, it's a social thing we're doing here when we're playing music. We're playing together. It's not like on an island or anything like that. So I don't know. I always find that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that they're also extremely competitive or self-motivated in their own way. I mean, it's kind of one reason why I've never chosen really to do anything else competitive because I feel like this was so hard to get this job. And we're still like trying to hold ourselves to, a really high standard, certainly for like the classical music side or at least I am like, I want to sound as good as, this Montreal recording or this New York recording. And so, like it's hard. You can't really do that if you don't care. Like,
yeah. Very cool. Well, let's get into some of this music stuff we were talking about.
Yeah.
So what we did is we chose 3 examples to kind of mess around with and use as jumping off points for some conversation. We chose an orchestral excerpt. We chose Wagner, Lohengrin, and we chose, if I can say this word, say it for me, Patrick. Doolallynastics.
Oh, yeah, Doolallynastics.
Okay,
Doolallynastics.
Yeah, so we chose a little excerpt from that. And then I wrote a etude in like a bassy style swing. So as you know, if you view this channel, there's always an etude available that goes along with every one of these releases. And so I thought we would just use that as the jazz example. And so we're both going to play each one of these examples. And we're going to talk a little bit about sort of maybe the things that we either were hearing when each other was playing or the things that we think are important to like playing this style correctly. So we're basically going from something that's like very like orchestral, that side of things, something that's sort of in the middle and maybe has like a little room for interpretation, whether that's, from a classical or jazz perspective, doesn't really matter, but just a little bit more sort of like open-ended interpretation that we could do many things, to something on the jazz side of the spectrum that has a little bit more probably like, I don't want to say predefined expectations, but a little bit more of a way that people would expect it to be played in the same way somebody would have expectations of the way that Wagner is played, there are expectations there that we have to work in. So maybe let's listen to the examples first of Lohengrin, and then we'll talk about it. So let's hear, let's go you first, so we can hear somebody who actually knows how to play orchestral music. I will tell you that playing in sort of this style, this orchestral style, especially this is a relatively articulate example, but also has some long notes, is one of my weakest areas as a musician. And so we'll see how I do. So we'll hear Patrick first, then we'll hear me, and then we're going to talk about it a little bit.
So with this excerpt, I mean, there's kind of the preparation of like, you need a certain amount, like, so I'm triple tonguing, ba-ka-da-da, dum-ba-da, and this time when I recorded it, dun-da-da, dun-da-da, I single tongued it, but you can also dun-da-ga, dun-da-ga, if you really want it snappy, like, if I was probably playing in orchestra and when it's the maximum of volume, like for me, double tonguing just, I can just throw more air at it. So, but yeah, so the first part is developing the clarity of da 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 da, and I mean, there's not really an easy way to say other than it's kind of Arbenz based. Like,
yeah, you just got to practice,
right? So
fundamentals.
So you start with just D D D D D D D D, F sharp A C, and then I mean, this is how it was kind of taught to me. Da ga da 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 ga. Then you do the arpeggio. It's like
so you do da ga da, not da da ga.
I think I
very inside baseball, but
I would double tongue the F sharp or the second group.
So the back tongue is in the yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah.
But yeah, like, and then slowing it down, and you know, this is again part of the daily thing, but practicing just scales, triple tongue or double tongue, da ga da da ga da da ga da da ga da da, like something that's kind of in between there, da ga da da ga da da ga da da ga da, that will increase your ability to do it without being so hard as type of thing.
Yeah.
So you sometimes need to invent some steps in between. I mean, and this is the perfect thing where like, okay, you might start learning this as a freshman or a sophomore, but you're probably not really going to be good at it until your senior year if you're lucky. Like,
or for me, you're not going to be good at it when you're 40.
I mean, yeah, it just takes a long time to develop those kind of secondary skills.
So 2 words that really stood out to me: clarity of articulation. And that's the thing that when we played it, I really heard the difference. Like, aside from, you know, you have a more orchestral sound than I do. And aside from those things, that's like a whole separate thing. The clarity of articulation that you were able to achieve was just so much better than what I had. And I hate to say in terms of better, but that's how I would want it to sound. You know, that's like the sound I would hear in my head that I don't know if I was necessarily getting to. Mm-hmm. So you said clarity and snap, especially on those triplets. I like that idea. And the dotted rhythms, like the dotted 16 notes, really having that snap. I feel like that, like that's the style you want.
Mm-hmm. And in between, you just need to sustain and
and
not run out of air.
Yeah. And, you know, one thing that for me, when I just, this is not an excerpt I've ever really worked on. Oh my gosh, hopefully you can't hear that my dogs are being extremely active today in the background. This is not an excerpt I've ever worked on. I have spent I've spent a fair amount of time practicing some classical music just because I want to be a better trombone player, but that's not one I've ever worked on. But the, okay, well,
another
visitor. Let's see if you can see my other dog here. This is the other one I have too. Oh, she's gonna knock into my camera. All right, Pipes. We might have to edit this out. Okay, girl. Yeah, that's a good girl, Pipes. Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh, no, you're not getting up there. Okay, we are back from the dog interruption. What was I saying? One of the things that I did when I was prepping this, I just worked on it a couple days because I wasn't going to dig in it super heavy duty, but I wanted to be able to play it passively here, is I listened to it. I listened to a handful of different examples of different orchestras playing it, and I think that's one of the real like commonalities between jazz musicians and orchestral musicians. Every orchestral musician I've ever known is like, how do you prep this stuff? Oh, well, you go listen to the recordings. Imagine that shocking concept in music that we would go listen to recordings to learn how to be better musicians.
Exactly.
And
it's so easy now. Like,
yeah,
you don't have to go to the library, check out records.
Yeah. And so like I listened to New York play it, and I listened to one other American orchestra, and then I listened to a couple of European orchestras just to kind of see how they played it differently. Mm-hmm. And they definitely did play it subtly differently to different tempos and stuff like that. But that is one of the things I did to try to play it as best as I could. And that claritative articulation is the thing that came through as a pretty common, thing across everybody, is that real like ta-ta-ta-ta or ta-ta-ta-ta, whether you're going to single it or double it. I really probably should have been doubling it. But that is what really one of the things that stood out to me as what I wish I could have done maybe a little bit better. And I definitely heard when you were doing it. Cool. Let's go on to Lynn and see what we think there.
Excellent.
So this piece is, a contemporary classical piece, very technically difficult. We kind of chose one of the less technically difficult sections, one of the more lyrical sections, partially just for technique ease, but also just to showcase like a different aspect of playing. And so again, let's hear both of us playing it. This is a piece that can be interpreted in lots of different ways. We both sort of just took the perspective that we were going to interpret it how we thought was best, given that it has some flexibility. We weren't specifically like, Patrick's going to play the classical version, I'm going to play the jazz version. That would be, I think, sort of not as interesting as just sort of leaning into what we might naturally do as musicians. So let's check out both versions, Patrick, then me, and then talk about it a little bit. So things that I was thinking about when interpreting this piece, this is a piece that I was kind of somewhat familiar with, but it never really like worked on. It's in all honesty beyond my technical ability, and just not necessarily stuff that I spend time practicing necessarily. But in this little lyrical section, to me, I was really approaching it from a more jazz perspective. That's really what I told myself, is I'm really going to kind of lean into some of the like inflection sort of stuff here and really almost just play it like I was playing a ballad. I mean, it's a beautiful melody, and just really interpreting it in that way. So really thinking about the things that make up good melody playing, thinking about phrasing, direction, having a clear concept in my mind about what I want to do with the music, thinking about those things. And then for me, just really being sort of as kind of freewheeling with some of the inflection stuff as I wanted to be. And really just interpreting it just like I would as if I was playing any melody that's a jazz standard or whatever. I think within reason, but thinking about what the context of the piece feels like, and I think what makes sense to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, so one thing maybe I picked up on the differences is we see a slur marking over it or legato, and I think the first couple times I played through,
I was tonguing those.
Yeah, right. And
no natural slurs, because that's not how I play a ballad.
Right. So I was natural slurring, and especially the G sharp to the F sharp. For whatever reason, I was like, once I got to the F sharp, I really didn't like where I was getting a response from the horn. So like the last time through, I tongued it, and I could get a better vibrato. But yeah, no, I really liked, it's got just like an essence of like that little pop of articulation when you played it. And then stylistically, maybe the biggest difference, even though there were plenty of differences, was when you got to the rubato, like you played them so slow and on the back, and I was like, I mean, I don't think I've listened to 10 recordings of this. I don't think anyone really plays it like out of time like that.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's so much better.
And I did listen to a couple recordings just to kind of get a rough idea, but I intentionally tried to not listen too much in this way because I didn't want to be too influenced. I wanted to sort of like, in this case, I wanted to be like, I'm just going to do my thing,
Well, right.
just as a point
I
of
sent
interest.
Shawn a recording of Mark Hetzler playing and Fabrice Milisher, and it's kind of the same way where it's like, okay, I had listened to them before, but this time around I listened to them once because I didn't want to be too influenced by it. And I was like, oh man, Mark is like killing this. Like, it's so good.
And they play it quite differently.
Yeah,
very differently. And so I think it's interesting, like you bring up the natural slurs. That's always one of the things that like, I think you talk to 5 different brass players about that. I think you get 5 different answers about like, what is the appropriateness of like, is it always a natural slur? If it could be, what level of tongue is there? Is there just sort of this little like tiny flick of tongue? Or is it really like, there's a very clear delineation between, if it's a natural slur, it says slur over it 100% of the times. I am natural slurring it.
and
it's just very squishy. And I feel like lots of people have different opinions about it. And I tend to not be very good at natural slurs. And so I was also maybe hiding my technical inadequacies in a musical decision.
I mean, it's a very honest room down there. So I was definitely like the octave and a third slur towards the end. I wasn't necessarily having too much issue with that at home, but like I got down there and I was like, ooh, that's just like
dry.
not responding.
It really
like,
shows you everything.
It's very honest that I'm not getting a full connection. And it's like, okay, I'm going to tongue that.
Or like when you were playing the, where it goes with the high B natural, were you natural slurring most of that? And so like, I totally hear it. And it's just like, to me, it's more of a musical choice than a right or wrong choice. You're making a musical choice with which way you want it to sound. I mean, I haven't listened back to it yet, but I think the way I played it was still connected. You wouldn't say it wasn't connected. Your way is certainly more connected. And so I always want it to be something that people are making from a musical choice and not from a, this is what I'm supposed to do choice. Even like, maybe that's why I'd be a bad classical musician. I don't know.
Well, and I mean, it's definitely a kind of a mind game at times where like, yes, we want to do exactly what's on the page and what's written, like, especially with classical music. But yeah, I mean, having played very little for Joe Alessi and then gotten advice from someone else who studied with major symphony players. And it was like, oh no, I tongue that there. Or like, I always use tongue. Like, even if it's legato or a slur, like I add tongue. And again, we're like we're hundreds of feet away, more or less, from the audience. Like, clarity is probably better than any sloppiness. So,
facts. Those are strong facts there. Okay, and then we are here at our final musical jumping off point, if you will. So now we're to a more like strictly jazz thing. I mean, if we can call it that. So as I said, this is sort of a bassy style, like etude that I wrote. We'll listen to a chunk of it and I'll sort of A-B which one of us is playing it. And you can kind of hear some of the differences as we go through some of the passages. It's sort of a kind of like a bassy style, like quiet shout. I don't think either of us played it super quiet, but more subdued shout and then into like kind of a full on sort of shout thing. So let's give this one a listen and see where that leads us. Okay, so when I sent this to Patrick, this chart has basically no articulation, very little inflection. There's not a lot of that stuff on there. I intentionally was vague in that way because that's what you get sometimes on a big band chart. In all honesty, there's usually a little more articulation than that, but sometimes it's not there. And I think that is a place where some more classically oriented musicians can really struggle with like, what does this articulation mean? Or like, what do you do here? Like when there's nothing. And I think you did a pretty good job. And I'm not just like blowing smoke. I was like, oh, Patrick is like playing the stuff that should be there. Cause I don't think we've ever played anything that's like more jazz oriented together. And we haven't played together a ton, but never something that's like swinging, bassy.
I took that gig off.
Yeah.
Jason got to play that one.
Yeah. And so, I had no idea what to expect. And I think one place that was funny in the shout, boo-doo dee dot 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 you do dot. You played it first when we played it, and I was already that's how I was gonna play it, and you played it that same way. So there is some sort of like commonality of language that you hear these things.
And like 90% of the time, I was going when I was like playing through it. I was I was putting it there, and I might have done it too on the second time. But like again, it's one of those kind of like the Lynn where it's like I could play this every time different. Without a trumpet player behind me, like dictating.
Yeah, for sure.
Where he's going to do those things. Yeah. It's like, I don't know if I should or.
Yeah. And I would say that I think most of the things that you did were the things that, not to say that we played it exactly the same, we didn't. Most of the things were the same sort of like directions of inflection and articulation. I would actually say some places you did more than I did. You took more liberties in some places than I did, which is not good or bad. It's just the way it goes. One thing I would be curious about from you, and this is one thing I'm always, if I can be like critical of classical brass players, is how do you interpret like the short quarter note on a downbeat in that type of tune? So like say we're in the shout, da do da dot dot dot, all those quarter notes on downbeats. That's always the one that I'm finding like everybody agreeing on what that means is difficult.
Like what is a fat note, right?
Basically, exactly. Yeah. Like where is that? Because I think we played them differently. And again, I'm trying to remember back to what we just played because I haven't listened back. I feel like you were actually, I think, I don't want to say more correct, but more maybe what I would want to hear than I sometimes hear from like a classical trumpet player, for example, where it ends up being do do da 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 versus dot dot dot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So there's got to be, I like to think that our brass section is pretty good about like
trying that's not to knock on the Omaha brass section. This is a lifetime lifetime grape.
It's kind of great because I think of the three of us in the trombone section, Jay's by far the most like in both worlds of and tenor and bass and like and then Jason's got a great ear, and I think his dad played jazz as well. So anytime where I maybe slightly start getting straight, like the guys to my left immediately like put on the brakes, and it's like, no, we're gonna sit and be cool.
Yeah.
So that's helpful. But yeah, I think we try to be pretty pretty heavy, like stomping around. Yeah.
Because that's the thing. It's like one thing for the swung eighth notes. It's all about those other little articulation things and all those little like subtle things that are like a lot of times not written on the page.
Well, that little where like I'm trying to ghost the bottom note. And I don't know if it came out, but like, they're like really cool licks, and like I said, try to do my best. Yeah,
but then sometimes I feel like, that would be an easy thing for somebody to play ba-da-ba-doo-da, doo-da, doo-da, where they like really nail those. If you haven't listened to a lot of jazz, and a lot of times it's not going to be written on the page. It's really going to be something that requires you to have, invested that listening time or, whatever, because there's so many little sneaky variants in there. I don't know. What'd you hear?
I thought we were closer in overall approach than maybe I was anticipating. Like it's like, I could throw all these, glisses in or type of things, and we did more or less an equal-ish.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah,
number, but I again, that like you just sang, da, ba, da, da, ba, you were so much like cooler than, because I'm like trying to be dee dee da dee da, like muscle out that not muscle, but like that triplet was kind of awkward for me. It's just like trying to be bob, and hard to get my ear on it without a backing track, and then yeah, just the, you know, in your other videos too, when you do those sweet little grace notes, like
Gotta go listen to Steve Davis. That's a Steve Davis special right there.
It's just so cool. I'm like, I can't do that.
All right, well, I think that's it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I
so
think that
much
ties the
for-
bow on it. That was actually a lot of fun. I think this is the most time we've ever hung out together. It was a
Totally.
good hang. And so if you made it this far, hopefully you did and enjoyed this sort of like classical versus jazz, even though, like I said, I don't really love that sort of paradigm. It's just all music. We're all trying to do the best we can to make the music that's in front of us sound good. If you want some more information, as always, in the virtual studio, Patrick is hanging out with me in there. We're going to play through some exercises, talk about some of this stuff, work on that etude. We will have just a little bit of gear talk because we can't have two trombone players together without messing around with mouthpieces and trombones and stuff like that. But other than that, we'll see you in the woodshed.